Anyway, she said, you know what, this is not what's going to make it happen. So she started looking into the note business and started buying notes at her kitchen table. Now, what I love about this story is a single stay-at-home mom buying notes at her kitchen table. Does that mean anybody might be able to do this? Yeah. So she has now grown this business to a nationwide company. Her and her facility are buying hundreds of notes each and every year. They're getting huge discounts and huge yields on their money. She's flown over here all the way from Ohio. So I want you guys to give her an amazing round of applause. Get on your feet and welcome Ms. Donna Bauer to the stage. Bring her up here.
Thank you.
Louder!
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Oh, thanks for having me. Great to be here. Well, great afternoon, everybody, right? No, it's a great afternoon, right? You know why it's such a great afternoon? Because today is the first day of the rest of your life. You know, for some people, it's not. They're doing the same thing that they did yesterday and the day before and the day before that. But I commend you all because you made a conscious choice to better your financial future. You couldn't be in better hands here with Lee Arnold, and I know you're learning lots of neat things. And so I think you're going to be thrilled with what I have to share. Because as Lee just mentioned, note buying works hand in hand with private lending. It's something that you'll be able to just pick up right away and incorporate with your present plans. And yes, you can make a lot of money when you buy these notes at a discount and they pay off in full. So I want to share with you, first of all, how easy it is. The reason I say this is the quickest, easiest way that you can make money in real estate. It is to own the note and not the property. First of all, you never even own the property. There's no tenants, no trash, no toilets, no rehabs. For me, that was huge. No carrying costs, no negative cash flows, no headaches, virtually no risk. For me, being by myself, this was huge because initially I started out with my brother and he was the hands-on guy and he's doing all the repairs and the remodeling. But he went on to be a developer and I liked working with the paper. And so I love the idea that I didn't have to deal with rehabbers that were drunk on the job and didn't finish or that did a bad job. You know what I'm talking about, huh? So for me, doing the notes was a perfect avenue for me to take. Now, there are a lot of different things that you can do with notes, but right now I want to focus on two primary methods. The first one is to buy, sell, or hold other people's seller finance notes. And you can easily make $10,000 cash in the next 30 to 60 days. And the best part of all is that you don't need your own cash or credit to do that. How many people like that idea? I will tell you flat out, of all the different things that you can do with notes, if you are just looking to jump in and you're brand new at this and you want to know, Donna, what's the easiest way to do it? This is what I'd recommend for you to get started. This is where most of my students are starting, and then they branch out. One of the other things that is real popular today is buying defaulted bank notes. How many of you are interested in that? Okay, we've got a few people that want to do that. I'll tell you, if you start buying defaulted bank notes, now this is different than the seller carrybacks that we talked about, and I'll explain each of those as we go forward. But we're talking about buying defaulted bank loans, and what happens is you can either get the property for a fraction of what you'd pay for an REO, okay, or you can keep the note. I teach you how to modify that note, keep the homeowner in the property, and you can get just amazing rates of return on your cash that way. It's fast and it's easy, and when you learn how to do that, you'll knock the competition out of the water because most people don't have a clue how to work this technique. So those are the two main techniques that I'm going to focus on. Now, before we get started, I want to answer a couple questions. You know, the biggest thing that I hear as I travel around is, oh, that sounds great, but it won't work here. Well, I agree with Lee's philosophy. I don't tolerate negativity, but I'm here to tell you it will work anywhere in the United States. I have been buying notes all over the country for 25 years. So don't tell me it doesn't work, okay, because I know better. You hardly have any competition. Now, in recent years, more and more people have jumped on the bandwagon as people realize that the banks have lots of these defaulted notes that they want to get rid of. But still, a lot of them don't have a clue of how to really work the note. And that's where I like to get involved, because I can show you how to restructure a note, I can show you how to negotiate and get a deed, all these different things that a lot of people really aren't privy to or just haven't taken the time to learn. You'll find that if you use step-by-step instructions, you can break it down. How to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Well, how do you buy a note? One step at a time. And so I use checklists. I've put together a system, whether I'm working on the performing notes or whether I'm working on the defaulted notes. I have two different checklists that I use. And when you follow that, you'll see that you could easily pick this up and start doing it right away. And the other thing is it's good for either part-time or full-time. A lot of folks, you may have a profession, and it's full-time, and you don't want to quit that profession. But you're saying, oh my gosh, the real estate market is so fantastic right now. How can I get a piece of it? Well, buying notes would be a great way for you to take advantage of the note market without spending full-time hours. On the other hand, there may be some of you that are looking to replace a job, or you're looking for a full-time opportunity. I couldn't think of a better one to share with you. So either way, whatever works for your particular situation, you can tailor-make your note business to fit whatever you're doing. The other thing I want to say is that it is very, very safe. I am very adverse to risk. I've learned the hard way over the years. Some of my most expensive seminars have been self-taught. And you chalk that up and say, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. So everything that I share with you, if you follow the way I share how to structure the transaction, it is totally safe. There is one technique that I'm going to share that is more risky, but I promise I will tell you that. Is that a deal? So that you'll know that maybe that's not quite for me. But everything else, I want you to know that if you structure it the way I share with you, you'll never be caught holding something going, oh, how am I going to get rid of this or what I'm going to do? Because I show you how you can do this step by step, and you'll have the note sold before you even bought it, if that's your game plan. Okay? And last but not least, you don't need your own cash or credit. When I got started, it's like Lee said, I was babysitting 9 kids for $1 an hour. And 5 of those were not my own. Were my own. 4 were my own, 5 weren't. So I didn't get paid for those 4. Yeah, who cares at this point? But at any rate, my husband was making minimum wage. We were struggling just to make ends meet, seriously. And I would lie in bed at the end of the day, and I'd say, Lord, Lord, please show me the pot at the end of the rainbow. And he did. Wrong pot, but it goes to show you need to be specific when you pray, okay? But then, of course, he did show me the pot at the end of the rainbow, and that was to do the mortgages. And that's why I'm here today to share with you. It has been a huge blessing for me and my family, and it can be a blessing for yours as well. Now, what I'd like to do, I want to start out with a basic seller carryback transaction, okay? And once you get a handle on how it works, then you'll be able to take this and apply some of the other strategies that I'm going to share with you. But just for sake of example and to lay a foundation, let's consider that we have Sam Seller. Now, Sam owns his own house. Let's say it's a rental property, and he owns it free and clear, and he puts it on the market for $600,000. And he gets a few people looking, but nobody serious, and just can't seem to get a deal put together. He's talking to his buddy at Starbucks, and his friend says, look, why don't you offer seller financing? What are you going to do with the money? Invest it, right? Why not leave it invested in the property? He says, put an ad on Craigslist. Say you've got a property for sale and that you'll offer seller financing. So that's exactly what Sam did. And lo and behold, he no sooner got the ad up than he gets a call from Bill Buyer. Bill is on the other side of the fence, and he's wanting to upgrade, promised his wife a bigger place, and yet he's got a few credit glitches because of all this stuff that's gone on in the economy. And a lot of people are in that boat right now. They're not bad risks. It's just that the banks have tightened up their lending requirements, and so they can't necessarily get a bank loan. Those are the type of folks that you want to find. So Bill shows up, he takes a look at the house, and he says, this is perfect for me and my family. And he tells Sam, he says, look, I've got $150,000 as a down payment. I've already sold my present home. So I can give you that $150,000. He says, I'll pay you 10% on the rest. I can pay you $4,000 a month. And in 10 years, whatever is left, I'll refinance and pay you off. Do you think that was music to Sam's ears? What a great deal. So they strike a deal. So Sam sells Bill the $600,000 property. And in exchange, Bill gives Sam $150,000 in cash, plus the mortgage, or if he were in a deed of trust state, it would be a deed of trust, for $450,000. So, was this a good deal for Sam? How many people think this would be a good deal for him? Definitely, because first of all, he got a quick sale of the house. That's first and foremost. If you want to sell a property quickly, seller financing is a great way to go. He's getting a 10% rate on his money, which is quite good in today's marketplace. He's getting the tax benefits from an installment sale, and he's got a nice, safe investment. So Sam is thrilled. Okay, let's say that 2 years go by, and this $450,000 mortgage is now paid down to just over $443,000. And let's say that Sam decides he doesn't want to wait another 8 years to get his money. 2 years have passed and everything's going good. Maybe he gets a call from an old buddy of his. And this buddy says, Sam, that business we were going to start? He says, I got the patents filed. Everything's all set. All you need is $375,000. He says, you'll be a multimillionaire. And Sam's raring to go until he realizes, where is his $375,000? It's tied up in that mortgage, isn't it? He has to wait another 8 years to collect his money. Well, it just so happens that Sam received a letter from Donna Dealer here. And this letter says, Dear Sam, I understand that you're receiving payments on a mortgage. I pay cash for mortgages. Give me a call and I'll tell you how much cash I'll give you today for your mortgage. Well, if you were Sam, would you call me? Yeah. In a heartbeat. So Sam calls me up. He tells me the whole story. Sounds like a great deal to me. So we strike a deal. Sam sells me the remaining payments on that mortgage. The $443,000 that's owed, he sells that to me, and in exchange, I give him the $375,000 that he's looking for. Now, does everybody see that I did not buy the property? Does everybody get that? Okay, that's very important. I bought the right to collect the payments that Bill owes to Sam, but Bill still lives in the property, okay? So, is this a good deal for Sam? Well, let's look at the whole thing. First of all, he got $150,000 as a down payment, didn't he? And he collected $96,000 over these last 2 years in monthly payments, and I just gave him $375,000. That works out to be $621,000. How much was Sam selling the house for to begin with? 600. So if you were Sam, would you be happy? Absolutely. And let me tell you, it's not all about the money. The big thing that drives these deals home, that will help you to buy notes at very low prices, is the timing. People's situations change. They might carry back a note and say, fine, pay me over the next 20 years. And then they get married, they get divorced, they want to start a business, they want to travel, they want to go to school. Things happen. They change their mind. They need cash now. You want to be in a position to give them that cash. And the really cool thing is, it doesn't have to be your cash. It could be my cash, Lee's cash, one of the other investors in the room, their cash. But when you are able to put that kind of a deal together, guess what you're going to be putting in your own pocket? A nice lump sum of cash yourself, okay? So that's how that works. But the timing, being there when they want to cash out, that is a key piece to getting really good deals with notes. Now, let's look at this. How many people would like to be in my shoes on this deal? Anybody? I thought you might like that. Because look, I just bought a $443,000 asset for $375,000. So do you see that I built in $68,000 of profit right up front? So if I buy this note, and the very same day, Bill refinances and pays me off, or he sells the house and pays me off, I don't just get my $375,000 investment back, I get all $443,000 that is owed. That is one of my favorite things about doing notes. You build your profit in up front. Totally different than if you buy a house. You buy a house and you're thinking, well, if I can put another roof on without taking that other one off, if I don't have to rip out the electric, and hopefully this carpet will clean up, and then if I can resell it for this much money. When you're dealing with properties, you don't really know what your profit is till you get all done, do you? Well, it's completely different with notes. You build your profit in up front. Worst case scenario, my rate of return is going to go up because I'm going to get paid my money quicker. Which, let's talk about that for a minute. When I buy this, I'm getting a 13.25% return on my money. So if I had my own money to invest, and if I decided I wanted to buy this note and for $375,000 and hold it myself, I'd be making 13.25% return. But hold on a second. What happens to Bill in this case? Does Bill's position change at all when I buy a note from him? No. His position stays exactly the same. And he's paying 10% interest. So if he's paying 10% interest, how in the world can I be making 13.25? Because I have less money invested. Because I bought it at a discount. The day that I buy this from Sam, he has $443,000 of his money outstanding, okay? And at 10% interest, he's receiving these nice payments of $4,000 a month plus the balloon. Well, if I step in, but I only have $375 invested, but I'm still getting those nice high payments he was getting, then I must be getting a higher what? Yield, rate of return, okay? The two are inversely proportional. You may want to jot this down. The less that you pay for a discounted mortgage, the higher your rate of return. The less that you pay for a discounted mortgage, the higher your rate of return. So, are Sam and Donna happy? They're real happy. And by the way, this is also a very good example of how you can use seller financing to buy and sell properties. Bill would not have been able to buy this property if seller financing wasn't involved. Sam was looking to get rid of it quickly and couldn't until he offered seller financing. So if you are a property person, and if you're wanting to either buy or sell properties, you can still use the seller financing to your advantage in this marketplace. And while this popped into my head, let me just share this with you. A lot of people say, well, I'm just going to do all notes. Or, no, I don't want to do notes. I just want to do all properties. The truth is you need to do some of both. It's a good idea to have a balanced portfolio. I mean, right now, it's a great time to be buying properties because the market's recovering and you get to take advantage of the appreciation and the tax benefits. But over the years, I've made a whole lot more money on my notes than I've ever made in holding the properties. But times have changed now. So now I'm changing my portfolio. And I want to keep a more balanced portfolio because now's a good time to buy properties. And if that's where you're at, then you want to look at buying the defaulted loans as a backdoor to getting the property at a really low price. So that's how you can use notes to keep a balanced portfolio. Are you with me on that? So don't let anybody try to talk you one way or the other. It's really a good idea to hold some of both. And the percentage depends on you. For me, like I said, I didn't want to own properties, so over the years, I've really leaned towards the notes. But if you're a hands-on person, now is a great time. You buy those defaulted loans from the bank and build up a whole portfolio of properties. Okay. All right, back to our deal here. So what happens if you don't have a property that you want to buy or you want to sell? Okay, how can you do this without your own cash or credit? Well, the key is you want to be Donna Dealer, okay? And you're thinking, well, wait a minute, I don't have $375,000. Do you remember that I said I started out, I was making $1 an hour babysitting? You know, I didn't have money to do my first deal, but it doesn't matter because you can do it without your own cash. We will use Irene Investors' money, okay? Now let me show you how this works. Let's say that you have this under contract. Sam has called you up, you strike a deal with him, and you're going to buy this note from Sam for $375,000. And we said if you had your own money, that would be a 13.25% return for you. Now, everybody listen to this because this is the key of how to make money doing notes. If you get it under contract and you have a note you want to buy, how are you going to make money on it? All you need to do is find someone that wants a lower rate of return than what you're buying it at. So let's say you met Irene Investor right here at this event, okay? Lee's introduced you to someone and you're talking to Irene and she's got cash. She doesn't want to own property. She wants to do notes. She says, oh, if I could get an 11 or 12% return, I would start buying notes right away. Well, if she wants an 11.5% return on this particular deal, that means she would pay $410,000 for this note. Do you remember when we said it's inversely proportional? Okay, because she wants a lower rate of return, that means she's going to pay more. So we buy for $375, we sell for $410. How many people want to do this deal? In a heartbeat, because you're going to put $35,000 in your pocket. People think that note buying is this really sophisticated thing that only the elite of the elite do. That's bananas. It is very simple. You buy low, you sell high, and whatever the difference is goes in your bank account, okay? For this transaction here, typically it would take 10, 15 hours of work. If you want to call sending out some FedExes and emailing some people some stuff and putting together some documents, if you want to call that work. Never once did I pick up a hammer. I didn't have to deal with any 3 o'clock in the morning phone calls because the guy upstairs had a stereo too loud. No rehabbers, none of that. It is so much easier than any other area of real estate that I know about. And listen, I've been in real estate way before I even did notes. Managed high-rise apartments and a 500-unit apartment complex. I've been around. I know how to do deals. I owned a title company for 3 years. Okay? But this is the easiest way. You simply get a contract with Sam that he's going to sell it to you. You get a contract with your investor that they will buy from you. You get an appraisal, title, credit report, call the insurance and get his name added on. You show up at the title company and you collect your money. How many people would like to do that? I'm telling you, it is the coolest thing. And the market, in my 25 years of doing this, I've never had so many deals in the pipeline. I mean, it's very, very awesome. You know, when the market first crashed, the notes that I was seeing, we were having a difficult time because they were all, the loan to values on them were all a mess. There was no equity in the property. Nobody wanted to buy them. And they had a lot with balloons on them, and people weren't able to refinance the balloons out. So it was difficult to get them sold. But what's really neat right now is that all these people have been carrying back notes. And I'm getting notes right now with 3 or 4 years of seasoning, which is great. Okay? And the properties are starting to go up in value. In many places, I mean, they've totally recovered. And so we've got good loan to value, good seasoning, and the people are ready and wanting to cash out. So everything's all in alignment. You could not pick a better time to get into notes than right now. And like I said, it's a perfect thing to fit in with your private lending. It is so similar, okay? All righty, so you're thinking, okay, but Donna, where did you get the $375 to buy this note from Sam? Well, we're going to use your investor's money. And we do that by using one of two ways. One is a simultaneous close. Now, how many people have ever done a simultaneous close? Okay, a number of you. Now, some of you might be going, oh, Donna, wait, stop. They won't let us do simultaneous closes when we're flipping houses. That's true. Title companies won't normally let you do that anymore. But are we flipping a house? Who said anything about flipping a house? We're flipping the financing. That's a whole different ballgame. We're doing the same thing that your bank does every day. Okay? And for that reason, the title companies will allow you to do a simultaneous close. And if they won't, you need to go to a different title company because they don't know what they're doing. Okay? So a simultaneous close works like this. You're going to close two transactions. You buying from Bill, you selling to Irene. You use the proceeds from when you sell it to Irene in order to buy it from Bill to begin with. So it looks like this. Irene will wire her $410,000 into the title company. Your title agent sets up two closings. The first one is Sam selling the note to you. The second one is you selling the note to Irene. As your title agent puts everything together, she says, my gosh, Donna's going to make $410,000 when she sells this to Irene. And the $410,000 is already sitting in our escrow account. So if they're sitting on money that they know is shortly to be mine, is there any reason for them to call me up and say, hey, Donna, get over here with $375,000? They don't need my money. What they do is they use $375,000 of Irene's money. And they use that to close on the first leg of that transaction. So they give Sam the $375,000. Now I own the note. Now, the note that I bought with Irene's money, I'm going to turn around and sell to her, and that's where I make my $35,000 profit. Absolutely legal. It's done all the time. This is the legal, proper way to use other people's money to buy your notes, to buy and resell. Another way you can do it is an assignment of contract. So Sam would sign a note purchase agreement. He agrees to sell you the note. Irene would buy that note purchase agreement from you for $35,000. So she's going to write you a check for $35,000. Then she steps into your shoes and she goes ahead and buys the mortgage from Sam. But if she's writing you a check for $35,000, what does she now know that you probably don't want her to know? Exactly, how much you've made. So that's why I prefer the simultaneous close, because then, unless they can see the settlement statements side by side, no one will know what your real profit is. Okay, so I've just showed you two different ways that you can make money with notes. If you came here this weekend and you have your own cash, then you want to be Irene or Ivan investor. You're going to buy and hold. You use your own money, and you do this to get a great rate of return and a nice, safe investment. On the other hand, if you came here today and you don't have cash available right now to invest, then you want to be Donna Dealer. You're going to buy and resell. You use OPM, which is what? Other people's money, okay? And you do this because you want to make a lump sum of cash. Well, you make $35,000 on this deal and $50,000 on this deal and $10,000 on this and $5,000 here and so on. It isn't long that you have cash to be Irene or Ivan. Let me share with you. This is a deal. This is my nephew, and I was so proud of him. He called me up and he said, Aunt Donna, could I have a copy of your book? I said, sure. So I sent it home with his dad. Never expected him to do anything, and I hope he doesn't hear me say that. But a couple months later, I get a call from Will. He says, Aunt Donna, I got a deal. I said, you got a what? A that deal. I got a deal. I got a note to buy. By following the checklist, listening to the CDs, he had located a note. He got it under contract. And I went through everything. He had it all lined up, bought the note. He had an end buyer for it, turned around. He made $15,000 on that note, and he split his $15,000 50-50 with the fellow that brought him the deal. He, at that time, was a college student. Can you imagine that? And like I said, he did that just listening to the CDs and following the checklist. So anybody can do this. I mean, he's a very talented young man, but my point is, it's all there if you just follow the checklist one step at a time. I was so proud of him. Now, this is another fella. He's a student of mine, and he is in Fort Collins, Colorado. On his first deal, he made $395,000, over $395,000. That's on one deal. How many people would like to do that? Would that change your life a little bit? On one deal. Now, here's the secret. The bigger the mortgage, the bigger the profit. Okay? Now, what he did here, this was a commercial note that he found, okay? And he could buy the commercial note for $2 million. Well, he didn't have $2 million, but he found an investor who wanted to buy that commercial note, got it under contract, did a simultaneous close, and he pocketed almost $400,000 on his first deal. Then turned around and did another deal and made $40,000 on the second one. That's how easy it is. So do you see now that he could be an investor? Now he's got enough money, he could buy and hold. Okay? And a lot of people don't see that connection. I mean, I think we probably all have the same goal to ultimately be a passive investor. We have beach money, where you can be sitting on the beach and the money just flies into the mailbox money, if you want to call it that, And to get there, you start out as Donna Dealer, and you're flipping the notes, and you make money on each deal. But once you get your stockpile, you start investing, just like you're doing as a private lender. So, pretty sweet. Well, let's talk about safety now. Is this a safe deal? The bottom line on it is the more equity that you have in the property, the safer the deal, plus the more opportunity there is for you to make some extra money if it should go into default. So let's look at what happens if, let's say, worst case scenario, Bill Buyer doesn't make one payment to you. Okay? And you have to foreclose and take the property. Well, either, if you have to go to the sale, either you're going to get paid off or you're going to get the property, right? One or the other will happen. So let's say that you go to the sheriff's sale or the trustee's sale, and you've got this $100,000 property. And let's say that you bought a $60,000 mortgage for $40,000. And the bid goes up to $60,000 at the sale. Well, if that's where it stops, you get your $40,000 back, your investment, and you get your $20,000 profit, don't you? So you make $20,000 and your rate of return goes up, because any time that you have bought a note at a discount and you realize that profit, instead of it being paid over 10 or 20 years, you realize that in a matter of a few months, your rate of return is going to go through the roof. Do you see that? Okay? So this is what typically would happen. Now, let's say that you go to the sale and no one else is there bidding, and you wind up getting the property. If you were to get the property, now we said you bought this note for $40,000. The idea is, think of it like worst case scenario. If you get the property back, can you quick sell it? And just, mark it down, sell it real quick, get your cash back. Do you think we could quick sell this property for $80,000? Yeah. So let's say you sell it for $80,000, and that means that you're going to get your $40,000 investment back. You're going to get your $20,000 profit, and you get another $20,000. What's that $20,000? That's bonus money, isn't it? That's $20,000 more that you never planned on. Now, how do you like this? You invest in this note. It goes totally south. The guy doesn't make one payment to you, and you wind up making twice as much as you planned on. Who likes that kind of a deal? That's That's the kind of deals that I like to do. And when I talked about that everything that I was going to share with you is safe, this is why. Because you're going to make sure, when you do your due diligence, you're going to make sure that there's plenty of equity in the property. Now, you might, and I should mention here, you could sell the house for $80,000, you double your profit, or you could keep the house, in which case you just got a $100,000 property for $40,000. How many people would keep that house if they would like that deal? 40 cents on the dollar. And the truth is that you can make bigger profits if you buy bad paper to begin with. Here, I just showed you how you can make a lot of money if you bought a performing note and it went into default. But if you were going to buy that note, our original Sam and Bill note, and if that was in default, if you were Irene, would you have paid $410,000 for a defaulted note? No way. You know, you might have paid $200,000 for it. So when you buy bad notes on purpose, you make a whole lot more money. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. I just wanted to make that comment. But are you thinking that most properties don't have much equity nowadays? Yes. I read your mind. You're right on target. Okay. A way around that is with partials. Just buy part of the note, and that's what gives you the safety that you want. For example, if you've got this $100,000 property and you've got a $60,000 note on it, and you're just not comfortable at $60,000, you could buy just half of the note. Would you be comfortable putting $30,000 out secured by a $100,000 property? Makes a big difference, doesn't it? So that's how you deal with properties that you might come across nowadays where there isn't a lot of equity. But like I mentioned before, the market has already started to come back in most areas. So really, I'm doing less partials now than I was 2 years ago. I would have told you almost every deal I did was a partial. But the property values have come up significantly. So what you do is you look at each individual deal and you find out what is the goal of the note seller. Sometimes they're just looking to raise a little cash. Other times they want to move cross country and they just need to get out of it. Dealing with one fellow right now, he's an elderly gentleman and he just wants to, his health is failing. He wants to clear everything up so his son doesn't have to deal with it. So obviously that's going to be a full purchase. But if somebody is just short of cash and needs to raise $30,000, just buy part of the note, okay? It's really a win-win for everyone. And this is what allows you to tailor make a deal to fit your particular parameters. Because one of you might, like you might say, hey, I'm not going to invest in anything more than a 40% loan to value. But Scott behind you, he might feel real aggressive and say, hey, I'll go to 85%. I know this market. So depending on where you're at, you can structure your deal to fit what you want simply by buying some portion of the payments. Is everybody with me on that? Partials are a really neat thing to do. And I will tell you that typically you make more money on the partials. So I'll share with you a deal and show you how that actually worked out for me. This is a partial, and this was a note that I bought. It was actually a second mortgage I bought on an office and a warehouse in Florida. It had a fair market value of $235,000, and at the time that they called me, the second mortgage was available for sale, and there were 39 payments left on that, plus a $25,000 balloon. Now, in this case, the note seller was trying to raise money just to buy some inventory. They did not want to sell the whole note. So I bought all 39 payments, but I split the balloon. I said, okay, I'll buy the first $14,000 of the balloon, and when the balloon pays off, I'll get 14 and you get the rest. So we struck a deal, and right off the bat, if I had my own cash available, I did have my own cash available on this, but if I invest my own money on this, I'm making 30.84% on my money. Okay? So if I just sit back and collect payments. But it got better than that. About 8 months later, I got a call from the Florida Department of Transportation. They wanted to run a highway straight through the property. Wanted to know what the payoff was. So 8 months later, I got a check for $15,185. So in a matter of 8 months on a little $10,000 investment, I made over $6,000 profit. And look at my rate of return, 88%. How many of you are getting 88% on your investments right now? How many people would like to get 88% on your money? This is one of the coolest things about doing notes. When you've bought at a discount, now it has to be at a discount. Okay, so this is different than if you lend money and you're lending the full amount. But if you buy an existing note at a discount and it pays off early because you expected to get that profit over 20 years or whatever. But if you're getting it in a matter of a few months, your rate of return goes up. Now, I will tell you that's the only time the Department of Transportation wanted to run a highway through a property securing one of my notes. But I could call up the payor and say, hey, listen, you know, banks are coming back around. I've got a mortgage broker that could help you get refinanced, save you some money on your interest rate, and in fact, I'll pay $2,000 of your closing costs. Even if I did that to help him get refinanced, I'd still be making 64% on my money. Pretty cool, isn't it? So think about this. When I started out, the first note that I bought was a little $7,000 second mortgage. I bought it for $3,500. I negotiated and got them to pay off early. So I had $7,000 to work with. So I turned around and I bought a $12,000 note. I negotiated and got them to pay off early. Now I've got $12,000 to work with. So then I bought a $20,000 note. And I just kept doing that over and over again. If you are looking to grow wealth quickly, that is a phenomenal way to do it. Do you realize that? And I did that in my IRA, in my self-directed IRA. So in a matter of, that was probably a year and a half, I went from $3,500 to over $20,000 in my IRA. And it just snowballs. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and better. That is a great technique to use because any time that your discounted mortgage pays off early, your rate of return skyrockets. That's a very important principle for you to get a hold of. Okay, here's another deal that I want to share with you. This was actually a deal that one of my students did, and he had been to one of my academies, and I shared this deal as an example. And he just set his mind, like Lee saying, don't say you're going to try, say you're going to do it. And that's what he did. He left there, he said, I'm going to do that deal. And he calls me up, he says, Donna, he says, I got a lady, she signed my agreement, she's moving to Europe, and she has agreed to sell 180 payments to me on this note. Has a balance of $71,000. She'll sell it to me for $46,000. He says, do you have a buyer? So I call up one of my institutional buyers, and I said, I shared the deal with them, and they said, oh, you know, we don't really want to buy the 180 payments. I said, okay, well, how many would you buy? They said, well, we'll buy 100 payments for $50,000. Now, do you see what happened? I see some smiles on faces. Do you see what happened? He got it under contract to buy 180 payments for $46,000. I get it under contract to sell only 100 of them for $50,000, which means that he's making $4,000 right up front. But more importantly, what happens to those last 80 payments? They go to him, okay? To the tune of about $45,000 worth of payments. Now, is that sweet or what? This is one of my favorite deals. And what's really cool about it is, he did this in his self-directed IRA. You like that? A couple things on that. First of all, in order to do this in your IRA has to show consideration because he did the simultaneous close thing, okay? And you can do the simultaneous close in your IRA, but your IRA must show consideration. So in my note purchase agreement, I've got a special clause. If you're doing this in your IRA, you want to drop that in. And what you do is you fill out a direction of investment and send it to your trustee and say that you want them to pay the note seller $100 earnest money. and I put that in my note purchase agreement. That $100 earnest money is enough to qualify this note to be done in your IRA, which means that you're putting $4,000 into your IRA when you close. And after the investor receives the next 100 payments, your IRA is going to collect the last 80 payments. So you're putting almost $50,000 into your IRA, and you only have $100 of IRA money tied up. Is that sweet or what? And your $100 was, and this $50,000, that is not a contribution to your IRA. That's profit on your deal that you did. Just like if you bought stock in your IRA and it went up and paid off. So if you are looking at trying to grow an IRA quickly, you really need to take a look at this. I don't know of a better way that you can safely and easily be putting this much profit into your IRA and getting it to grow as quickly as with what we're talking about here. This is what the banks do. This is what the wealthy people do. I mean, and when you start learning how to do the numbers and everything and how to buy a partial and all of these kind of things, it's phenomenal, the deals that you can put together. I thrive on it. I just think it's so much fun. I'm a numbers person. But that being said, maybe you're not a numbers person. Okay? My brother, well, he likes numbers, but you don't need to be a numbers person. You need to buy low, sell high, and keep the difference. I know many people who they go and they don't even know how to calculate the rate of return, but they talk to the note seller, and they'll call me up and they'll say, Donna, this note seller wants $50,000 for this note. Great. I could, now I'm going to calculate, but I could just call up a note buyer. You could call me up and you could say, Donna, I've got this person, they want to sell this note for $50. What would you give me for it? And I'd say $60. And you just made $10,000 and you've never even picked up the calculator. So as long as you know the idea, buy low, sell high, you can be doing notes. But if you really want to have fun, learn the numbers and you'll be able to do all kinds of creative things and really, really maximize your profits. And I mentioned using the IRA. You have to have a self-directed IRA. Do you all have one? How many people have one? Great. If you don't, you need to get one. Because if you have a true self-directed IRA, you can invest in anything that the IRS will allow you to invest in, which includes your notes and loans and things. I use Equity Trust Company. Their website is trustetc.com. CAMA Plan is another good one. It's camaplan.com. But there are a number of different ones that have popped up. But just make sure that you get your self-directed IRA set up. That would be the first thing that I do when I leave here on Monday morning. I'd get that IRA set up because even if you don't have cash in it, if you've got the $100 earnest money that you can put in, you want it to be ready so that when a deal comes by, you're ready to jump on it. Because time is of the essence on the deals. When you get somebody that wants to sell, you need to be able to move on it. Okay, bottom line is you can put it in the IRA or the IRS. I think I'll put it in my IRA. I don't know about you.
But a Roth.
Roth IRA is awesome, absolutely. I mean, definitely I would, and for those of you who have a traditional IRA, you may want to start a Roth IRA. I know for some of you it's a taxable event and you might not have the cash to pay the taxes on a traditional. So start another one and make that one be the Roth IRA.
Is there
Yes?
any age limit on IRAs?
I honestly don't know about the age limits on IRAs. Does anybody know that?
Roth has one. Because I'm already 70.
I don't know. Maybe, Lee, do you know about that? Maybe you could help him with that later?
Yes, later.
Okay, Lee will take care of you after a while I'm at. I'm not quite there yet. Sorry, I haven't dealt with that yet. Okay, I want to mention here creating seller finance notes. We don't have time to go into this today, but there's a couple things that you need to be aware of so that you can be looking for that if you decide that you need to get involved with either buying or selling some notes. There's three big mistakes that people make a lot with seller financing. The first one, and most important one, is they don't realize that the value of the note is determined when you create it. I hear of people that are downloading documents off the internet, and you carry back a note on a property they're going to sell, and then 2 years later they go to sell it, and guess what? The document's all wrong, they didn't structure it right. I will tell you a little story. I had a lady, I felt so bad for her. She was a widow. They'd had like 30-some properties that she and her husband had over the years. And before he died, they had sold all of them, created 35 notes, actually used an attorney to do it. And she sent me 3 of these notes because this was her whole retirement. And she says, let's try these 3, and she wanted to sell the rest of them, and this is how she was going to get her cash to live. Only she sold me those, she sent those notes to me, and I didn't even want to buy them. They were that bad. They were not structured right. The documentation was poor. Now, a lot of times I can use a modification or an estoppel agreement, and I can fix if there's just some parts that are ambiguous or something like that, I can fix it. But if your whole deal is structured wrong, I can't go back and restructure the deal. So what I want you to know is if you are thinking of holding a note, okay, if you're going to sell a property and carry back a note, please learn how to structure it right to begin with. Because 5 years from now, when you want to sell it, it's too late, okay? It's very important. What I pride myself on is teaching you how to create a note that will give you the maximum cash out value later. What are the note buyers looking for? What will they pay the most for? Do I need to have a balloon? How far out should that balloon go? What's the highest interest rate that I should charge? You know, you might think, well, the higher the interest rate, the more appealing. Well, there's a sweet spot, because if it gets too high, nobody wants it because it could be usurious. So you got different things that you have to look at. So be aware of that. The other thing is, people think that to buy a house with seller financing, it has to be free and clear. That's not true. How many of you ever heard of a wraparound mortgage or an all-inclusive deed of trust? Perfect thing for this economy. Okay, you can actually leave a mortgage in place. Okay, you sell it to someone else and write a mortgage to them. They make a $2,000 payment to you, and then you make a payment on your existing mortgage out of that. And it's all done nice and legal. There's a lot more detail to it. Unfortunately, I don't have time to share. I do have that all written up in my Smart Seller Financing book. So just because a property has a mortgage on it, don't write that off that you can't do seller financing, okay? And then another thing is, people think that if you're going to buy a property with no money down, that means that the seller doesn't get any cash. Now, I don't know about you, but the people that I run into that are selling properties, they're looking for a little cash, aren't they? I mean, that's usually why they're selling. Well, I'm going to give you a special report. For those of you who take advantage of my materials, I'm going to include a special report that shows you how you can buy a property with no money down and still give the homeowner cash at closing. And in fact, put a little cash in your own pocket. And you basically do that by having them carry back the mortgage, but you help them to sell some portion of that mortgage. And when you sell that, that puts cash in their pocket and in yours. And that's a little bit of an advanced strategy, but when you sit down and see it on paper, it's easy to do. And it's a perfect example of the fun that you can have and the creativity once you learn how to do the notes and how you can do partials and stuff. I mean, it really opens up doors for you that you never even imagined possible. Okay. So how many of you would like to know about buying defaulted bank loans? Are you ready for that? So far what we've talked about are buying the seller carrybacks. And then I mentioned creating notes, okay? But now this is a completely different strategy. We lost my mic there. Okay. I sometimes have difficulty in getting people to realize to keep them separate. They're two totally different strategies, okay? But for those of you who are wanting to build a property portfolio, this is definitely the way you want to do it. And if you're looking for exceptionally high rates of return on your money, you would also want to do this. So let's take a look. We've already talked about that. You can buy properties really cheap. Okay, let's say you have Hank and Haley homeowner, and they own their house. It's worth $100,000, and they owe the bank $115,000. Okay, and you negotiate with the bank, and the bank agrees to sell you that note for $50,000. Okay, if you buy that note now, Hank and Haley owe you $115,000. Now you might think, why in the world would you want to do that, Donna? They're not making payments. Hello, I know, but I'm going to use that as leverage to get the property. But keep in mind, again, I own the note and the mortgage. I don't own the property. I own the right to collect whatever they owe the bank. So everybody is with me on that, right? Okay, so now that I own the right to collect that, now if I want the property, I am either going to just step in and foreclose, which is not what I like to do. I'd much rather negotiate and get a deed in lieu, okay? The first thing I personally am going to do is I'm going to sit down and see if they would qualify. If they want to stay in the house, I would try to do a forbearance. But if you're going after the property, the way to do it is either negotiate and get the deed or foreclose and take the house, either way. Either way, you've acquired that property for 50 cents on the dollar. One thing that you want to keep in mind, when you are buying the notes directly from the bank, the privacy laws prohibit you from contacting the homeowner. And this is one of the downsides of dealing direct with the bank. For years, I was working short sales and buying defaulted notes like that, where I already was in touch with the bank and already in touch with the homeowner, so I knew what they were going to do. If you have access to the homeowner, it's awesome because you can sit down and find out what are their plans. Do they want to stay? Do they want to leave? Are they willing to negotiate a deed? In fact, in my materials, I teach you how you can actually get the deed in lieu and get it in escrow, so that when you do buy the note, you've already got the deed. Or you could do your forbearance agreement if you're leaving them in. You could put that in escrow so that when you buy the note, it's already a done deal. Those are those safety things that I told you about. That if you follow my system, I have you protected so that you're not going to get stuck holding a note and can't do anything at all with it. Okay? So, just so that you're aware, and by the way, I teach you a variety of different places to get notes. You can either market for the homeowners directly, like I just mentioned, or I have a lot of students that are calling banks, especially the smaller community banks, and just saying, hey, I buy defaulted loans. Do you have any loans on your books that you want to get rid of? A lot of students are doing that. But in today's marketplace, there are a lot of hedge funds and private equity funds where they'll buy blocks, $1 million blocks of notes, and then they break them up and sell them off to smaller hedge funds, and then they'll sell them to a smaller one, and then the next one's going to say, okay, I'll sell one-offs. One-off is when you can cherry pick and choose one at a time. So there's a lot of different places right now, besides going directly to the bank, where you can buy these defaulted bank loans. How many of you would like to buy a $45,000 house for $3,333? Anybody want that deal? Nathan did this. He is one of my students, and I was so proud of him. This is the house. I actually saw this myself. And what happened was he bought 3 notes directly from a bank for $10,000. And he went and he knocked on the door, and he no sooner introduced himself. He said, I just bought your note and mortgage from the bank. And before he could even get anything else out, the homeowner says, oh, thank God, I've been calling the bank and they couldn't talk to me because they said they'd sold my loan. Look, I just want to move out of here. Will you just take a deed in lieu of foreclosure? He's got $3,000, a little over $3,000 tied up in this. The house as it sits is worth $45,000. Would you take a deed in lieu on that? In a heartbeat. So he got the deed on that. And the truth is he's going to put about $2,000 in some carpet and paint on the inside and probably wind up selling it for $65,000, $70,000. Those are the kind of deals that are out there. And that's why I say you can get properties at rock bottom prices. If you are wanting to build a portfolio, really consider buying the defaulted notes and using them as a backdoor to getting the property. You will get a much, much better price than you could ever negotiate straight off the bat with the bank or whoever you're working with. Now, on the other hand, if you're looking for quick cash, you've just bought this note from the bank for $50,000, you could turn around and wholesale that to an investor. Don't do anything to it. You don't get a deed, you don't do a forbearance agreement, you've got it locked up, you own this note, you're now the bank, turn around, mark it up $10,000 and sell it to an investor and you make $10,000 in profit and you've never even owned the property. How many people like that idea? I mean, if you don't want to be hands-on, great way to quickly make money. And it's really the same principle as our Sam and Bill deal. The only difference is this note is in default. So you mark it up, sell it to somebody else, let them decide, do they want to foreclose or do they want to do a workout with the homeowner? If you're looking for monthly cash flow with super high rates of return, then you want to rework the note. You want to sit down with the homeowner, find out if they're capable of making payments. You know, many of them went through a bad time a few years ago, but they're back on their jobs, they're making money. The problem is they got behind and they can't catch up. But when you're buying these notes for pennies on the dollar, what's so cool is there's a lot of room there where you can give a significant forbearance. You can write off a big chunk of that mortgage for the homeowner and make it affordable for them, not to mention just restructuring the interest rate and different things, the term, the length of the mortgage and everything. But even if you forgive part of that note, you're going to still make a boatload of money. Okay? And I personally, this could be used like a ministry to help people. And before the crash, people would ask me this, and it was very difficult to do. You know, the banks would do short sales, but they wouldn't let the homeowner stay in the house. It was all about getting them out of the house. Now this is just a whole different ballgame. So if you're really wanting to help people that have gotten behind, this is a great way to do it. Buy the note, use the forbearance agreement, and keep the homeowner in the house. It's a real win-win. Now, of course, I teach you how to sit down. If they're not working, and their situation hasn't changed, you don't want to leave them in there. So it's all about, checking out their debt ratio and making sure that they're back on track now. So if you bought the $115,000 note for $50,000 and you rewrite it for $100,000, okay? So we forgave $15,000 of it. We rewrite it for 30 years, 8% interest, and we put a 10-year balloon on it. Your rate of return is 20%. Does everybody see what that did? The homeowner is paying 8%, but you're making 20% because you don't have $100,000 invested. You have $50,000 invested, but you're getting a $733 a month payment, which is based on 8%, $100,000 at 8%. Does everybody see that? So because you have less money invested, even though they're paying the nominal 8%, you can be making 20% or more on your money, depending on what you have invested in the deal. If you want to make even more, a higher rate of return, then what you could do is when you do your forbearance agreement, you put some clauses in the forbearance agreement to incentivize them to pay you off early. Because remember, any time that you've bought a note, a discounted note, and it pays off early, your rate of return is going to go up. So you might say something like, I'll give you a $10,000 discount if you refi in 5 years. Just adding that clause in brings your rate of return from 20 to 24%. Even though you're taking less, you're getting your money back quicker. And an important thing that I need to say here is when you get your money back quicker, you need to make sure that you turn around and immediately invest that in another note. You don't want to negotiate and get out of a 25% rate of return and take the money and put it in a 2% CD. I had a lady do that once. I thought, oh man. I said, what'd you do with your money? She said, well, haven't had time to reinvest it, so it's in the bank. I'm going, why did you talk him into paying off? She's making over 25% on her money. If you're not ready to reinvest the money, leave it in that deal, okay? But the idea is if you can keep your money moving, okay, get them to pay you back, reinvest it in another discounted note, get them to pay you back. That's how you grow your money. If you really want to maximize your profit on the deal, then turn that note into a reperformer. You bought the note for $50,000 because it was in default. If you sit down with the homeowner and you do the forbearance agreement and you rewrite it, if they make payments on time for 12 months, is it still in default? No. It's now current with a pay history. They call that seasoning, okay? You could turn around and sell the note that you bought for $50,000 a year later with a good pay history for $80,000. Think about that. You'd be making $30,000 just by seasoning the note. So depending on what your goal is, if you're trying to move your money fast because you want to get it back out for another deal, then you could certainly just resell it, fix it up and resell it right away. But if you are able to hold it and get some seasoning on that, it substantially raises the value of that note. I mean, I know a lot of people that are using this specific strategy to build their portfolio. They're buying pools of notes, rewriting them, seasoning them, and then a year later selling them off for top dollar. So that's the general scenario about buying defaulted first. Do you remember that I said that everything I would talk about is safe except for one thing? And I promised you I would tell you when we're right here, okay? Buying defaulted seconds are a totally different animal. Do you like that animal? It's a pretty different animal. Defaulted seconds, you can make a boatload of money on. I mean, there's so much opportunity on defaulted seconds. But I've also seen a lot of people lose a lot of money on them. Everything else that I've shared with you, it's all safe. It's backed with equity in the property. You've dotted your I's, crossed your T's. There's really no risk. But when you buy a defaulted second, most of the time in today's market, you don't have equity, okay? And so you are rolling the dice, okay? But I'm telling you this because it's a real popular thing if you like the risk. Remember, risk reward, okay? It's much more risky, but you also get much higher rates of return. The safety of your typical note lies in the equity. We've already talked about that. You can foreclose and get the property back and sell it to get your money back. But today's defaulted seconds are, I've already said, there's little equity. But the thing is that many homeowners continue to pay on their second mortgages because they want to keep the house. So even though there's no equity in the property, they've lived there for 25 years. They're not going anywhere. This was the family homestead. They plan on dying there. So it really doesn't matter to them whether there's equity in the house or not. It's almost like it's a rent payment at this point. To them, what's the cost of living here? They're not moving. Those are the kind of notes that you want to invest in if you're wanting to do the second mortgages. An example of settling a second mortgage. You could buy a $50,000 second all day long for $10,000. I mean, really, you get the biggest discounts on them because they're less valuable than the first. So your goal is to settle with the homeowner, getting as much money as you can up front, okay? So if you let's say you buy a $50,000 second for $5,000. You could offer to settle for the homeowner for $25,000. So you've just forgiven half of the balance owed on that note. And you could settle with them for $25,000. You could say, okay, give me $10,000 now, and then you could arrange for them to pay the other $15,000 over time. You just doubled your money, plus created a future cash flow. You have none of your own money invested in it. Do you see that? And because you're able to buy them so cheap, the deals that you can put together that are a blessing for the homeowner and a blessing for you are just off the charts. It gives you so much opportunity. Let's say you offer to settle with the homeowner for a lump sum of $15,000. Okay? There you tripled your money in 30 days. What you do is you call them up and you find out what they have. And I'm here to work with you. And they want to work with you. They're glad that you're calling and not the bank. So they say, well, look, the most we can come up with is $5,000. All right, start there. Then work on what can they pay you per month. So the goal is to work out something that is a win-win. You want to set them up to win, not set them up to fail. So you need to look at their financials, and you need to make the decision, where do we go from here? Because quite honestly, some of them are pie-in-the-sky people that, I can't make the payments for 5 years, but nothing's changed, but tomorrow I'll start making payments on time. That's not the kind of person you're looking for. You're looking for the people that you know that you can structure a deal where they will be able to make the payments. Even if the homeowner doesn't have any money for an initial down payment, you could just rewrite the loan. In this case, I made it $30,000, 8% amortized over 20 years. So payments of $250 a month. Your rate of return is over 60%. How many of you are getting 60% on your money right now? Would you like to do these deals? I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you can do on the seconds. I have a video, an online video course, and on that video course, I go into detail on how to analyze the seconds so that you can minimize your risk. And just real quick, one of the first things you want to do is always buy a small pool. You don't want to just buy one defaulted second, unless there's equity. If there's equity, that's a different thing. But assuming there's no real equity in the property, what happens is there's a certain percentage of these that are not going to pay off. There's a certain percentage that, you make a little money, and then there's some that are just off-the-chart home runs. And so you need to be able to buy a small pool to really make that worth your while and to minimize the risk that's involved. Here's an example of a second where there is equity. Now, I've been doing these kind of deals for years. This is one of my students' deals. She was actually working a short sale. The property was worth $245,000. There was a first of $160,000 and a second of $37,000. And what happened here, the husband of the homeowner died in the middle of her doing the deal. So the bank said, we won't do a short sale. We are just going to go ahead and foreclose. And she called me up in a panic. She said, Donna, I've worked on this for over 2 months. What can I do? I said, call up the second mortgage holder and offer them 10 cents on the dollar. The day before the sheriff's sale, she bought the $37,000 second for $3,700. The day before the sale. Okay, so here's what might have happened. Now keep in mind, she owns this second, so she's going to show up at the sale and she's going to be bidding, okay, to protect her interest. She could have run the bid up to $197, in which case $160 would go to pay off the first, and she would get $37,000 for the note that she bought the day before for $3,700, and she'd make $33,000 on a $3,700 investment in one day. I know people that are making this their whole game plan. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made on that. That is not what happened in this particular deal, but that could have happened. This is what actually happened. Let's say that there isn't anybody there bidding. And in this particular case, she won the bid at $160,000, okay? And she'd already bought the second for $3,700. So she walks away with this house. She's got $163,700 in it. She's got over $80,000 of equity. All because she took control of the deal by buying that second. But this second had equity behind it, and that's the difference. So it's important for you to recognize what the deal is so you know which strategy you're going to use. But isn't that sweet? How many people would like that deal? And that's another one you could just do all day long. You do need to remember that when you're buying a second, always be prepared to pay off the first. It doesn't usually happen. Typically, you're able to work that out, but I have had it where they wouldn't. Now, in her case, she didn't have the 160, but she took another investor to the sale with her. And he said, if you win the bid, I'll put up the money, and that is exactly what happened. Okay. So we have covered 3 basic strategies for using for bad paper. You can use the note to get the property, you can restructure the note to avoid the property, or you can settle defaulted seconds. Did you see something there that might interest you? Did you get how much money can be made in the defaulted notes? They're different than the seller finance notes. Now, truly, if you're just wanting to jump in and do some quick deals and make some quick money, I recommend the seller finance deals, the performing notes. But if you're really wanting to get to the nitty-gritty, make a lot higher profits, but it's more intense, a lot more work, and many times involved with the property and that kind of thing, then you'll want to do the defaulted loans. Or if you're wanting, like I said, to build a portfolio of actual properties, then you would want to start with the defaulted paper. In closing, I want to share with you my favorite deal. And this is not the deal that I made the most money on, but it is my favorite deal because it was the very first deal I did. And for me, this was a life changer. I had sent out some direct mail letters, and I teach you how to buy a list and send out postcards and letters. All the marketing and everything is in the materials. But on this, when I first started, I didn't know to buy a list. In fact, I doubt if they had lists back then. But I went down to the courthouse and spent a whole day, and I came home with 5 names. And I thought, oh, I'm throwing them in the garbage. This is not, there's no way. I got little kids. I can't spend all my time at the courthouse, and I come home with 5 names. And then it's like, wait a minute, you worked really hard for these 5 names. You ought to at least send out a letter to the 5 names. So I did. And wouldn't you know it, I get a young guy that calls me up. One of those 5 called me. Now, this was an 18-year-old fella, and he and his brother had inherited this 4-family in Cincinnati. And the 2 boys did not get along at all. The one, Daniel, the older one, he took care of everything, collected the rents, painted the place, mowed the grass. He made sure that everything was right. That was Daniel. David, the one that called me, was a total bum. He was on drugs, he couldn't hold down a job, he wouldn't work on the property, so they didn't get along. So Daniel, the responsible brother, buys his other brother out. And in the process, they create this $32,000 mortgage secured by a $114,000 4-family. Is there equity in that? A lot of equity. No partial needed here, but I still recommend that you make an offer of a partial, because I'll show you, you'll actually make more money. In this case, I did. So we've got Daniel making payments to David. At the time he called me, 13 payments had been made, so it was well seasoned. I knew he paid on time. There was a balance owing of $28,000. My first offer was the partial, or excuse me, it was the full purchase. I told him, I'll buy the entire remaining balance. David, I'll give you $20,000 for that. Now, if he had accepted that, and if I had my own cash, which I didn't, but if I had had my own cash to put into it, I would have been making 21.5% on my money. How many of you are getting 21.5% on your money? Good for you. Would you like to do some more of those? The 21.5%, this is right off the bat without any early payoff or anything like that. When you are out in the marketplace and you're marketing for these notes, it is not unusual to get 20, 25, 30% rates of return because it's based on how much money they need. Okay, that's what a lot of times determines the price. So my second offer was the partial. I said, if you want, I'll buy just the next 36 monthly payments for $12,000. Notice there my rate of return is much higher, isn't it? And usually you can get a higher rate of return on a partial. Well, it's very funny because a lot of times the people will take the partial. They like the idea that you're going to give them a little cash now, But at some point in the future, they're going to go back to collecting their monthly payments. So that's why I always make 2 offers. So he says, oh, this sounds great. He'd sell me 3 years of payments. So I got that under contract. I found an investor and got it under contract to sell it. I did a simultaneous close, and I made $1,772. This was my first deal. Now, I sent him a letter. I said, Dear David, it's really been a pleasure doing business with you. In fact, if you ever want to sell the rest of your note, give me a call. I'll give you, what did I say? I give him $8,000 for the rest of the note. No, I told him $6,000. I told him I'd give him $6,000 for the rest of the note. So it was about 2 or 3 months later, I get a call from David. David is in jail, and I was his first phone call. He didn't call his mother. He didn't call an attorney. He needed bail money, and he knew where to get it. So he calls me up, tells me the whole scenario. I got a lady I did my quick due diligence. She's got a title update in that. Got a lady from the Cincinnati RIA Group who was a notary. She went with me, and literally, I go into the jail cell. They locked us in the jail cell, and I bought the second half of his note sitting in the Boone County, Kentucky jail. So I turned around, I sold that to an investor, made $3,600 on that. And did you see why I said that I made more money? I had originally offered $20,000 for the whole note, but by buying it in pieces, I only gave him $18,000, which gave me a higher profit. So I made $3,600 on that, and so my very first deal, I made $5,372. Now keep in mind, I really was babysitting for $1 an hour. Do you know what that was like to have all that money? I mean, this was like, just a godsend. I went out and I got a car, and it changed my life. But you know what the most valuable thing about that deal was? It wasn't the $5,372. It was the confidence that it gave me. I've done it once. I can do this. And so it was, once you do one deal and this works. And I haven't stopped since. That was about 25 years ago. But at any rate, so what I've done is I've put all my materials together here for you. And over the years, I have really developed a system. When I learned to do it, I was getting bits and pieces from all different people. But I'm a very organized person. I like checklists. I like everything systematized so that anybody can walk in and pick up if I'm not there that day. And so I've built a system. This is the Note Buyer's Master Guide itself. How many of you like the idea of doing the seller carrybacks? Did you like that part, the first part of it with Sam and Bill? Then you want to start with this book. And this is like, to me, it's like a foundation for notes, because even if you're doing the defaulted notes, the evaluation process and what note buyers want and everything that's in here, if you, let's say you buy a defaulted note, you rework it, don't you want to know if you go to sell it what somebody would buy it for? So it's a good idea just to start out with this because it gives you a good foundation. And that is the one that will allow you to put $10,000 in your pocket in the next 30 to 60 days. That's the one, if you want quick money, start with that. That retails for $997. And then my Smart Seller Financing, if you're thinking about either buying or selling some properties and you want to use the Smart Seller Financing and you want to know how to create a note that you could later sell for the most money, then you want to start with this book. This is my Smart Seller Financing. And this has a retail value of $597. And then I have my Note Buyers Academy. And this is a 22 CD set with a full color manual of all of my PowerPoints. This is of a 4-day event that I did. At this event, I cover everything. I cover the seller finance notes, the bad paper, creating notes, everything. And that was recorded live. Then I've also I've put them all together in a 3-part set. The value's over $2,000, and I have those today for you for $997, and you get all of that. Plus, I've got some really great bonuses for you. One is I'm going to give you that special report on how to buy a property with no money down and still give the homeowner cash at closing. So I'll have that special report for you. I'm going to give you my brand new calculator course. I will tell you that at Noteworthy, as Lee was telling you, we were there, and people were raving about this. One fella came by and he said, this book alone was worth the entire price of the course. If you really want to know how to calculate and figure out your yields and everything, this will help you to organize your thoughts and really get you up and running very, very quickly. I'm also going to include a year of coaching. Now, the coaching is for the seller finance notes. I cannot offer coaching on the defaulted loans because that's very customized. And quite frankly, I would not have the time to help everyone. But with the seller finance notes, I have a limited amount of space. And right now, I have a number of students who are sending me their seller finance deals as a learning process and to make some money. The way it works is that you focus on marketing. You get into the gold book, you send out your postcards or your letters. When someone calls you up and says, hey, I've got a note, then you take down the information, you email that to me. From that point on, I will walk you through the whole deal. Okay? It's a great way to learn. We will use my investors. When we close, we split the profits 50-50. So this is a great, great way for you to learn and to make money at the same time, okay? Basically, you find the deal, you collect the information, and send it to me. And I only have a limited number of spots because when we work these deals, I'm helping you to analyze every step of the way. I teach you why they quoted this much. I teach you how to negotiate, what's the best way to present it. I go over all the numbers. I mean, people are really pretty amazed at the coaching that goes on with it, and to be able to make money at the same time. It's just an awesome way to learn. I also have the bad paper video training that I told you about. It will show you the top 3 sources. It'll teach you how to evaluate, how to lock up the deal, all your due diligence, funding for it, closing, really everything you need to know about the bad paper. And that's going to be a free bonus as well. Plus, as a student, you'll have free access to my notes. I have a small pool of defaulted notes available in Florida right now. I have a small pool of performing notes in Florida. I get notes all the time. So if you're interested in notes, you need to let me know. And as a student, you would have first access to the notes that I get available. I also will include 3 quick reviews of your bad paper deals. People are getting caught by some unscrupulous sellers out there. And I don't want that to happen to any of my people. So if you're looking at a defaulted deal and you just want to run it by me, I'm happy to do that. I'll do 3 of those and include that with the materials. So you're going to wind up with 3 comprehensive systems, over 30 hours of audio instruction, the coaching, all the forms and the legal documents are all online. That way I can keep them updated for you and I add to them. You get the calculator course. Use my investors. You got the bad paper video training. You get first dibs on my notes. The bonus report, the review of the 3 bad paper deals. That's over $10,000 worth of stuff, and you get it today for $9.97. And for the first 7 people, they can get it free. And here's how that works. I've given away courses and no one does anything with them. They all make promises, okay? And I've learned that unless you have a little money in the game, a little skin in the game, you don't take it serious. So here's how we're going to do it. You pay your $9.97 today, and I will actually sign a promissory note I've got up here, and then you use the coaching program. You market for your seller finance deals. When you come across one, you send it to me. I walk you through the deal. I prepare all the documents. I do everything for you. And basically, you work with the note seller. I work with the investor. When we close, how do we split the profits? 50-50. My promissory note says that when we close, you bring that to me, we close within a year of today, and out of my 50%, I give you back the $9.97. So the reason I do this, do you remember I said, if I can get you to close one deal, you'll be sold. And it's a funny thing. I can tell you my average student makes $10,000, $20,000 on a deal, and nobody does anything. But if I tell you I'll give you back $9.97, everybody wants to do it. So if that's what it takes, that's what we'll do. So if you want to be, I can only take 7 people, and for those of you at home, I'll take 4 of you if you're watching at home, okay? But you have to pay the $9.97 first. Okay, so it's $997 that you pay today. Then you bring me a deal within a year. You get half the profit plus your $9.97 back, okay? But you need to invest the $9.97 today. And I will take the first 7 people that I can offer that to. Yes, sir. Did you have a question? Okay, go on back to the back, okay? And anybody else that wants to be one of the 7, go ahead and go back to the back so you reserve your spot. You know, and then I just want to say in closing real quick to the rest of you, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe everything happens for a reason. And I think there's a reason why we're all here today and I'm here. I don't know what your personal situation is. Maybe some of you are facing bankruptcy or foreclosure. Maybe some of you have lost your job. Maybe some of you would like to lose your job. But whatever the circumstances, if money can fix it, then your prayers have been answered today. Because I don't know of a better way, in all seriousness, for you to take advantage of this real estate market than what I've just shared with you. And what's neat is you can tailor-make whichever one of these strategies fits you. Some of you are people persons, some aren't. Some are numbers people, some aren't. Some have full-time to put into it, some have part-time. With the notes, you can tailor-make it to fit what you want it to do. And you have me behind you. I am committed to helping you to succeed. There is nothing more rewarding than when I go to an event and somebody comes up and says, Donna, I've closed 7 deals since I met you. You know, I made $35,000 on this deal. You know, Phil in Fort Collins made $396,000. That's a life changer. And that was just his first deal. And so, especially when we're working the good paper notes, that's something we can do together. We'll both make money. We'll both be blessed by it. So if truly you are looking to change your financial future, I encourage you to be one of the first ones back at the back. I would love to work with you, and I'm committed to helping you to start putting money in your pocket. Thank you for your time. Look forward to talking to you and visiting. Are you all going on the cruise tonight? I'm looking forward to that. So meet me back in the back, and I'll help you get started. Okay? Thanks.